starts now.
They are partying in Alabama. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
Roll Tide! Roll Tide!
Fans going crazy after the Crimson Tide won the college football national championship.
Hands down the greatest football game I ever watched in my life.
Alabama beat Georgia 26-23 on a touchdown in overtime to win a fifth national championship in the past 9 years. That was the national anthem before the game. President Trump was on the field, hand over heart, mouthing some of the words, though critics wondered on Twitter if he got some of them wrong.
We want our flag respected.
And that was earlier in the day in Nashville. President Trump, of course, has been critical of NFL players kneeling or sitting, protesting the anthem. And the president also told farmers at a convention in Nashville,
"Oh, are you happy you voted for me? You are so lucky that I gave you that privilege."
He hailed tax reform and said he'll help farmers reworking that NAFTA trade deal. Long shunned and sanctioned over its nuclear weapons. North Korea will be back on the world stage at the Olympics next month. Fox's Simon Owen monitoring live from London.
Dave, North Korea and South Korea have been holding their first official talks in more than 2 years, and they've ended with the North saying it will send a team to the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, South Korea next month, including athletes, spectators and cheerleaders. A joint statement says the two countries have also agreed to hold further talks to improve relations and to resolve their differences through dialogue. The Olympic team could be small. Only 2 North Korean athletes have qualified, a pair of figure skaters. Dave?
Simon, 2 days after
3, 2, 1.
that SpaceX launch in Florida of a U.S. space spy satellite, the Wall Street Journal is reporting it was a failure, citing officials who believe the rocket plunged back to Earth and the highly classified satellite is a total loss. Fox News. Fair and balanced.
All money managers may seem pretty much the same. But while some money managers may recommend high-commission investment products, Fisher Investments avoids them. Some money managers may have hidden and layered fees. Fisher Investments never does. And while some money managers are happy to earn commissions from you, whether you do well or not, Fisher Investments fees are structured so we do better when you do better. In other words, we're structured to be on your side. Maybe that's why most of our clients come to us from other money managers. Talk with us and find out why so many experienced investors are switching to and staying with Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments, clearly better money management. Investments in securities involve the risk of loss. Visit us at FisherInvestments.com to find out what we can do for you.
We have some weather-related closings and delays again this morning, mostly delays because of some icy conditions that formed overnight. Meteorologist Dan Zero says the weather will continue to improve today. Hundreds of mourners gathering for the funeral of 3 family members killed in a New Year's Eve shooting at a Long Branch home that also claimed the life of a family friend. Monday's funeral for Stephen and Linda Kaloji and their 18-year-old daughter Brittany, filled with family and friends still trying to make sense of the tragedy. With the announcement the former Revel property has been sold, it's likely 2 casinos will open their doors in Atlantic City by sometime this summer. Gaming expert Roger Groves thinks this is going to be too much for the city to handle, and one other casino will end up closing as a result.
I think that would be all we'd lose initially. We'd have to see how the city would respond and how the market will respond.
He believes Bally's is the favorite to fall first. The Cape May Luz ferry remains docked this morning due to ice in the bay. Service has been shut down since Thursday's snowstorm. Tugboats have been used to break up some of that ice. I'm Eric Scott. This is the Town Square News Network.
Are you selling your home? Call Robert Dukansky of RE/MAX First Advantage. He guarantees to sell your home at a price and a deadline you agree to, or he'll buy it. And there's no risk to you because he'll let you out of the contract anytime. The average agent sells about 8 homes per year. Rob's team sold over 600 last year. This is a great time of year to sell your home as the buyers are serious about buying and there's less competition. Leslie of Roselle Park learned this when she reached out to the Dukansky home selling team and decided to list with them. Robert has the home selling guarantee, but Leslie didn't need it in less than 3 weeks. And with 23 showing requests, she had multiple offers on the property and ended up selling for top dollar. Rob spends over $100,000 to market his homes. This generates a huge pool of buyers. In fact, Rob may have a buyer willing to pay top dollar looking for a home just like yours. So call the only agent I would call if I needed to sell my home. Call Rob Dukansky today at 855-350 855-350-1015. That's 855-350-1015 or online at robsellsnj.com. That's robsellsnj.com and start packing. For the first time since Christmas Day, the entire state of New Jersey climbs above freezing today with high temperatures around 40 degrees, pretty typical for early January, under partly to mostly sunny skies. As temperatures freeze again tonight, icy spots will be probable. A few clouds around, lows in the lower to mid-20s. Back to around 40 tomorrow with increasing clouds. We'll make a run for 50s on Thursday. It'll be a mostly cloudy day with rain arriving after sunset. Friday looks wet but warm, highs near 60 degrees. I'm meteorologist Dan Zero.
From Harry Hurley Way in the world's playground to the broadcast pioneers of Philadelphia Hall of Fame.
I want to congratulate my friend, Harry Hurley.
You're about to find out why Harry Hurley has been named to the Talkers Magazine list of the 100 most important talk show hosts in the nation. Live from the studios of Town Square Media in Northfield, it's Hurley in the Morning on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
6 minutes past the hour. This program each Tuesday morning in the 8 o'clock hour, paid for and presented by Chuck Malamut, who is in his 27th year as our financial advisor here on the Hurley in the Morning program. Chuck is the managing director. He leads his team, the Malamut Group, at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office. The number to reach Chuck and his team for all of your financial planning needs is 609-383-2010. And this program is presented by Chuck Malamut, a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of Chuck and do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast and are subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley, Smith Barney, member SIPC. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a very, very kind and compassionate Chuck Malamut. He promised to be nice to me today because he knows that in one fateful moment this morning, when I didn't realize that there was ice everywhere, I didn't go down, but I slightly have tweaked my lower back, my left hamstring, my right hamstring, my left knee, and my left shoulder. And 600 milligrams of Motrin, I don't even feel like I took it. So Chuck has promised to be nice to me, and he should be, because we look at the stock market continues to rise to records as what is being called the Trump rally pushes higher. Welcome, Chuck.
Good morning, Harry. Good morning, Kirk.
Good morning.
A word to your listeners. You did take one for the team, so beware, because you go outside, it looks a little wet, and you take that first step, and then you realize you need to take baby steps.
Exactly.
Because you don't know what's coming, and I mean, it's supposed to get into the 40s.
41.
So that's good, but
then tonight it'll be 19.
The question I've asked a number of people, and maybe this is a great question for Denny: when all this snow melts, where's it going to go?
Let me tell you what they're going to have to do. And Sonny McCullough, who has more roads even than Denny, what they're going to have to do, they have to dig out the drains.
Yes.
They're covered right now because this water is good. I know what happens. This is worse than when that certain neighbor, whoever, I'm not saying in my case, drains the swimming pool and bam, it's all over the place. Without those drains dug out, big problems.
Yeah, and this is probably a good opportunity for them to hopefully begin that process, because it's supposed to get into the 50s, I believe, in the next
51 by Thursday, 56 by Friday, and it's going to rain on Friday.
And so the rain will melt the snow, which will give us more rain.
More rain.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we're good with the average rainfall for the month of January. It looks like.
Yeah, and
sure.
And going back to the top of what Chuck said, going out. A lot of people will be going out right now to begin your workday. Please respect the conditions, because you can walk out and have no problem, or you could walk out as I did and have ice all over the place. And it is such a thin layer of ice. I have lights on. I could not see it, and it's not good. We had a listener, D, who fell this morning just walking out of her steps. I think she said she wanted to see if she had mail, because a lot of us haven't had our mail delivered in days. I did have mail delivered late last night somehow, and that was part of my injury. because the entire ramp off of the driveway, sheet of ice.
Well, sometimes getting no mail is actually a good thing.
Yeah.
Because typically, if you don't take your bills online, you get bills and you get advertisements. You know, I don't get too much mail per se.
Well, there's packages and stuff. There was some, Amazon Prime. There's some things to get, and I got it all right. Yeah, keep the economy rolling.
You're absolutely
exactly.
right, Kirk.
Chuck Malamut, market update.
So, Harry, before we get there,
okay.
I listened to you this morning, Kirk, as well. I mean, what a fabulous way to end the college season. Our President Donald Trump, before the game, standing at attention for the national anthem in the
walking
middle,
in with the uniform dress military
in the middle of the field, which was just magnificent. The game, I watched the beginning, got a little distracted, and then obviously fourth quarter.
It actually topped last year's game, which ended at the end of the game. The last play last year, it was phenomenal. I felt bad for Georgia.
Yeah, they built a fairly substantial lead, and I mean Nick Saban. I mean, the guy's an absolute football genius. I mean, he made that big change at halftime, put in the freshman quarterback,
and if it didn't work, people were going to go nuts on him.
Well, it did work, so that's all. That's all that counts. But
I want him to be very happy because he's never been happier in his life.
I heard your monologue this morning, Harry.
On that last play, he's never been. He's a married man since 1971. He has 2 children, Nicholas and Kristen. He's never been happier in his life until that play last night.
I think maybe that might have been taken a little bit out of context too, because you think about the emotion.
But he said it in the press conference.
Well,
too.
You think about the emotion and the adrenaline, but only time will tell. How's that sound? But back to the market. It seems as if we're firing on all cylinders. I mean, the Dow Jones, the S&P, the Nasdaq, were all up over 2% last week. The winner was the Nasdaq, up 3.4%, and believe it or not, we still are getting some great things happening overseas. The MSCI emerging markets, the non-developed countries, up 3.7% for the week. So, if you remember, Harry, you asked last week where we think we were going to be.
Yeah.
In high single digits, low double digits was the projections. We're talking 8, 10, 12%. And if you think about it, we literally took a third of it. We got about 25% of that accomplished in the first several trading days of the year. But I think what's going to happen here, it's going to all focus on earnings, and earnings will be coming fast and furious within the next week. And it's a matter of as I think we said on multiple occasions, the bar has increased. There's been risen as a result of higher earnings year over year. So the question is, can we beat expectations? Can we beat what was accomplished a year ago, which I believe we can? But ultimately, the go-forward-looking statements that these companies make with respect to where they think their companies are going to be, Q2, 3, and 4, the remainder of 2018, will that be enough to satisfy, the market pundits? At the same time, the Fed is sort of backed off just a little bit, it seems. They put sort of a brake on here, and as a result, there's some discussion anywhere from 2 to 3 rate hikes, but it's not as if we're hearing we're going to get a rate hike, at every particular meeting as we get through 2018. The one thing that we really need to be, I think, a little bit concerned about. I mean, if we own energy stocks, energy has done very, very well in the last several months. The price of crude, topped $68, a week ago. And the price of West Texas, year over year is up 14%. Meanwhile, the good news is the price of the pump's only up 6%. But having said that, oil, commodities, they are an expense, to any particular company. And will the increased price in crude ultimately, create higher expenditures to these respective companies? Something we need to think about.
What do you think? And I don't mean this politically at all, because your show is never politically based, but it is a program that's intellectually honest and recognizes geopolitical threats and different things. 2 geopolitical threats that I think are worthy of you commenting on, and we could do it right after the break, but I'll put them out there now. Number one, I think this incessant media just obsession of questioning the sanity of the president is something that's very bad for our country. And I can't absolve the markets from that statement, although to date they seem to be inoculated from it. The second thing is the president is not only saying he's going to do it, he's ramping it up. And this is offshore drilling in Anwar, offshore drilling almost everywhere. We've been saying on this program for my entire career, and I know we mention it during your show from time to time at the very minimum, that if we become energy independent, in other words, instead of having enough each day to meet half of our needs, if we have enough each day to meet all of our needs, that I think instead of $2.55 per gallon for an unleaded gallon of gasoline, who knows what that could come down to? $1 a gallon, $1.50 a gallon? I mean, we should be able to dramatically change everybody's life. And Chuck, you taught me this a long time ago. Every penny that we reduce a price of a gallon of gasoline by is worth, is it $1.5 billion or $1.2 billion? $1.1 billion? So there you go. We'll talk about that and more next with Chuck Malamut. A reminder, for all of your financial planning needs, do as I do, not as I say. Turn to Chuck, his team, the Malamut Group, 609-383-2010. 609-383-2010.
At Ocean First Bank, our first thought is you. We put you first in all we do. Community banking for a century. We treat you like your family. Whatever you need, whatever you dream, let's make it a reality. Ocean First Bank, putting you first.
From personal and business banking to residential and commercial lending. From Kid Smart Saving to planning her dream wedding. From saving for your golden years to checking off your bucket list. We're with you every step of the way. Welcome to the bank that treats you like family.
Whatever you need, whatever you dream, let's make it a reality. Ocean First Bank, putting you first.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Opportunity Lender.
When it comes to the success of your small business, you make every dollar count. So what could you do with $10? It may not sound like a lot of money, but it's enough to turn 500 strangers into 500 connections. All it takes is the right business card. Go to Vistaprint.com today and you'll get 500 high-quality custom business cards for only $9.99. You heard right. 500 business cards for $9.99. That's less than 2 cents per card. But don't let the price fool you. Vistaprint uses only carefully selected inks and paper stocks, so your satisfaction is absolutely guaranteed every time for any reason. You'll find dozens of designs that are just right for your business at Vistaprint, and you can add your logo and contact information with just a few clicks. It's never been easier to turn strangers into connections. Just visit Vistaprint and start today because this offer won't last forever. Get your 500 business cards for just $9.99 at Vistaprint.com. Use promo code 8787 at checkout. That's Vistaprint.com, promo code 8787.
Do you hate your CPAP? Do you keep your family up with your loud snoring? Dr. DeFelice can help you sleep better. He cured his own sleep apnea and snoring. Visit HamiltonBraces.com to schedule your free consultation and start sleeping better because you deserve it.
Retired FBI agent Art Fitzenmeyer with a warning to homeowners.
I may be retired, but I'm still fighting crime. Today, a disturbing crime wave called house stealing is a huge problem across the U.S. If you own a home or property, you need to act now. House stealing is easier than you think. Everything a cyber thief, family member, or tenant needs to steal your home's title is online. They just forge a few documents, take you off title, and refile under an alias. Then they drain your home's equity and stick you with the payments. Victims often don't know until they get foreclosed. Identity theft programs and homeowners insurance don't protect you. For just pennies a day, Home Title Lock puts a digital wall around your home's title to help guard your most precious asset, your family home and property.
Sign up now and get your home's title history a $60 value free. Visit HomeTitleLock.com and use promo code PROTECT. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code PROTECT.
Hey, wake up with Harry Hurley and drive home with me, Sean Hannity, 3 to 6. It's all happening here on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
We continue with Chuck Malamut. So I floated two very real, because they're happening, geopolitical things. One is the media challenging the very sanity, not even just disagreeing, but the sanity of our president. Do you think that is something that could be injurious to financial markets?
Well, Harry, I think you would have seen it by now in the fact that,
good answer.
I mean, this has been floated out there for the last several weeks as he's ramping up to his physical. I would have thought the market by now would have reacted or overreacted if that were the case. And your other question was with respect to
us drilling.
Yeah, I mean, you think about when Trump came into office, one of the thoughts that immediately came was that if you want a new regulation, you were going to abolish 2. And
they've done 22.
So what is happening now, and you're seeing it across all industries, particularly in oil and drilling and production and transportation of such, that is the case. So that's we are, I think, halfway there as far as being energy independent, and I'm not quite certain we're ever going to get it 100%, but it's certainly I think we're certainly moving in the right direction.
Don't we have the assets that we could?
I think we're close. I think a lot of it is going to be dependent on what the usage is. I think think about it. If we're running this economy at 3.5, 4, even 5. Can you imagine 5%, GDP, and the fact that
I can't. Some people could. But
unemployment is at an all-time low, and I think Kirk, you had mentioned it earlier today. The fact that Afro-American unemployment is at all-time lows as well.
Hispanic all-time low.
So it's not as if we're looking. It's unemployment across all races, which is great. So the fact that the job market has become very, very tight, increasing potentially wages, the fact that from the Trump tax cuts in probably about 80% of the states out there, not so much in
New Jersey,
in some of the blue states, but what is happening? Yesterday, for instance, Visa came out and announced that they were going to double the 401k match.
Wow.
You've had a number of financials come out, and a number of individual companies, $1,000, holiday bonuses, an increase in the hourly average wage to our workers. So, and that is all being attributed to these tax cuts. I'm very, very curious as we get into the earnings season, and it's probably, every earnings season is important, but I think this is going to be a little bit different because it's not so much what is reported, we're sort of looking in the rearview mirror, but what these companies think they will be doing for quarters 2, 3, and 4. I'm very, very curious, and I think that's going to be one of the main drivers, of the equity markets for sure.
Just seems to me, my vantage point studying this every day is that our financial markets are unimpeded. A lot of the strangling things you mentioned, the legislation the president has repealed, he promised for every new regulation he would repeal 2. He's repealed 22 for every one that's been put in place. So really the country and business and industry and our financial markets and real estate and everybody, it's almost like an unbridled, opportunity to just show what free market capitalism can do.
And even, I think we're seeing it here a little bit. Even though it's, we're sort of, behind the curve, the fact that, you have two major facilities coming back online, that being the Hard Rock and the second one being the Revel, and I think it's going to be called Ocean Resorts, come online in the summer. And again, this is more just based, locally. I think that's going to help housing for sure.
Yep.
We will employ another 4,000 plus people, 4,000, 4,500 perhaps.
I'd say more than that. You're
In
talking
those two
about
facilities?
Revel and you're talking about Hard Rock. I got to believe each one of them has to be a minimum of 3,000, 6,000 jobs
all
minimum.
Right, but here's the boogeyman in the room, so to speak. Atlantic City is now finally, I think, getting its feet back on the ground.
I know what you're going to say.
Where you have
now there'll be more inventory, so then there could be some contraction.
parking. Look, parking. It's. I think bringing these garages back online, I think, are very, very important.
Bringing the hotel rooms back, very important.
Gaming space is another question, and so now at the end of the day, we're not going to. We don't want to talk about any one particular company or one particular casino, but
Roger Gross believes that one casino will close because of the two that are opening.
I think that's a very, very strong probability at this point in time, and I think it's not hard to figure out which one it's going to be.
No, we could say it, but we won't, and I think it's pretty clear. I was just going to tease and say you know the property, but you know them all, so that's not even. And
I think more importantly, it's been sort of identified what's going to happen with the Trump Plaza. I think that's going to take to the wrecking ball.
And the garage kept.
But what's going to happen with ultimately our old stomping grounds? I mean, it's been. That got very, very quiet as to the original Golden Nugget.
Several deals have just not been able to get to the finish line.
And is Showboat in a position where they're going to offer gaming? So you have a couple. I mean, so you have several wild cards out there.
How do you defeat a deed restriction? The people bought it for.
That's a good.
Gladstein bought it for a price that was discounted because it's now got a deed restriction that it can't be a casino.
I hear you. I'm not quite. I mean, I'm hearing some things that I really can't, broadcast out there. But we'll kind of leave it at that.
You don't have to. But if somebody tries to do something, like if you sold me something for $1 that should have been $100,000 because it can't be used, I can't open up the ice cream store. But then I open up the ice cream store a year later, I would think you'd have major litigation and big problems.
Only time will tell.
Time will tell. But as you know, I am not a fan of those deed restrictions anyhow.
No, you've been very, very vocal about it.
I don't think it's right. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's zoned for that permitted use, and I don't know how that'd be like saying that a citizen could change the deed restriction, or put a deed restriction in, with their own property. I really don't understand that. Chuck, is there more on manufacturing and global economics that you want to talk about?
Actually, I mean, let's talk a bit about the jobs report because it came. What happened was we were sort of in the throes of last week and really weren't paying much attention to it. But the initial headline number that came across was a little disappointing. But the labor market, as we kind of identified, is still very strong. I mean, so the December jobs report came in at 148,000 new jobs created. So that number is still higher than the 75 to 100,000 range that the Fed put in is indicated to necessary to keep the unemployment rate to remain steady. So the 3-month average of new jobs is still more than 200,000. And so the report showed that wage rates rose only slightly by 2.5%. So again, one of the concerns that we have, increased wage growth ultimately transcends, I think, into higher potential inflation. So, and the job numbers, a lot of that was seasonal work as well. So I think we're still obviously moving, in the right direction. As far as manufacturing, it still remains obviously a bright spot. I mean, we kind of talked offline here. I mean, everywhere you go, Kirk's in Florida. I had an opportunity. I was out west last week for several days. There's a lot that's going on outside of generally South Jersey. I mean, just look at Philadelphia, for instance. But manufacturing remains a bright spot for not only here but also what is happening globally as well.
Chuck, we're to the bottom of the hour break, but I want to pose a question that comes from somebody who both you and I know very well. This is a former corporate level vice president in the casino industry that Chuck and I both worked with for a number of years. I'll go as far as to say I actually worked with him at 2 properties. Chuck, any thoughts on the state of New Jersey's pension shortfall and how it could be fixed looking for your thoughts in terms of balancing the state's budget. It's a weighty question. Obviously, if they didn't rate it in the first place, that would have been a good place to start. You had the most solvent pension system in the world, the police pension system.
Harry, that is a loaded question.
It's a tough question. I mean, a Goldman Sachs chairman genius destroyed it. But in fairness, we're bipartisan here, nonpartisan. Governor Whitman borrowed from it. That would be criminal if you were in the private sector. And now we have another what's the company? Goldman Sachs, high-ranking executive that will be the governor. But this is, the unfunded pension.
Goldman Sachs seems to manufacture a lot of the politicians.
Yeah, I know.
Now,
I will let me give one positive, though. Do you know that Governor Chris Christie, and it will be in our interview that we're going to be doing sometime in the next couple of days. Obviously, we're going to do it. He's promised that we're going to do it, and we're going to do it uninterrupted with no commercials. It's going to be an amazing interview. He funded the pension system more than like the last 5 governors combined. So the unfunded pension liability, that's serious business, Chuck.
Well, Harry, I think when you add to the fact that I think New Jersey is the number one state as far as citizens departing and moving to other locations.
It's called wealth flight.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep, for sure.
So what's the answer? I mean, I guess making the contributions as required is a good start, right?
You have to make the contributions, but you have to take a look at our debt. Take a look at our ratings. I mean, and I'm not going to pick on a particular entity, New Jersey Transportation Trust Fund. I mean, it's basically on the edge of being non-investment grade, high yield.
You also have to look at the number of pensioners and how much each month.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is that I can't imagine raising taxes as the solution, but government's not going to want to hear this, whether it's state or local or municipal, but it's a huge beast that needs to go on a diet.
Of course.
And
here's
unfortunately,
the thing, Chuck,
no one wants to go on a diet.
As you know, in New Jersey, there's a constitutional requirement to balance the budget. Unfortunately, part of that can be anticipated revenue. So it's a big game. You don't really have to show that the money's there. You can just say, we anticipate that the money's going to be there. When I was a school board member and I was chairman of the finance arm of the board, I had to read, this was an oath that I took. I had to read into the record that adequate funds were available to pay the district's obligations, not for just this pay period, for the rest of the year. We couldn't make that stuff up. We had to say we have enough for every liability that we have, salaries, wages, benefits, expenses, everything. They just play games, and then we have these unfunded pension liabilities.
I'm not quite sure how you plug it, Harry, how you solve it. Other than the fact, as I just said a few minutes ago, and nobody wants to do this. Nobody wants to go on a diet. Nobody wants to reduce the big beast of government. The regulatory authorities that are still out there, even in the state of New Jersey, are over the top, and it's still I think if you took a 20, 25, 30% cut across the board, I don't think we're going to recognize any change in services.
If this was a person's company and you were dealing
you'd be out of business.
Yeah, and probably in jail, though, because you would be taking – the pensioners would have been paying funds into the pension that you would have been stealing from the pensioners. This is why it just infuriates me that they're allowed to do this kind of thing. Here would be my answer. Make me the CEO, and here's what I would do. I would make it an absolute requirement. Kirk's laughing and Chuck's laughing at me. But I would make it an absolute requirement that we have to fund the current pension liability. On top of that, I would set a program that would be required to put in X amount over the current pension liability to then pay back the pension fund that you've been stealing from.
Don't disagree with you. The question is, where's it coming from?
Well, it's going to be coming from those tax increases that we're going to be getting because they're coming. But that's for another part of the show. That's for next hour. We'll take a brief time out. To our listener, great question, challenging question.
Who's the most listened to afternoon talk show host in South Jersey? It's Sean Hannity on WPG Talk Radio 104.1. Sean tells it like it is.
I'm so sick of the media. They're basically all opinion now. And their opinion is they hate Donald Trump. They're throwing every bit of paper against the wall, hoping something sticks.
South Jersey's #1 afternoon talk show host is Sean Hannity. Weekdays 3 to 6 on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
The ocean at 101 Boardwalk, where every day offers a beautiful view.
At the Ocean at 101 Boardwalk, they want to make your new year shine brighter. The Ocean at 101 Boardwalk is offering $50 to $200 off their monthly rents now through January 31st, 2018. Yes, it's true. All leases signed with paid security deposits received by January 31st, 2018 will get $50 to $200 off their monthly rent. Call 609-348-1200 for details. That's 609-348-1200 or stop by and take a tour. The Ocean at 101 Boardwalk, located on the Atlantic City Boardwalk and Beach, where every day offers a beautiful view and a happy 2018 to you.
The Ocean at 101 Boardwalk, where every day offers a beautiful view.
Hi, it's Mark Levin. Join me at 6 this evening. Now back to the mayor of the morning, Harry Hurley, on WPG Talk Radio 104.1, South Jersey's talk station.
Very important public service announcement. If you are traveling anywhere down beach, this doesn't seem to be the case on the mainland. There is a level of fog that has created a very dangerous visibility issue at the moment. You cannot see one block in front of you. Mr. President, anybody that you know that's driving down beach, one block or less visibility at this hour. So everybody, please be careful. And from my source that phoned me during the break, people are driving too fast. If you're listening, please slow down. You literally can't be seen, and put your lights on. Even though sometimes in fog, you feel like the lights make you disable your visibility even more. It will help you to be seen from the rear or you in the front coming forward. So please be guided accordingly on that. Down beach, the visibility, I can't say it's near zero, but it's a block or less visibility. So very dangerous conditions. We have ice as you're walking down your own steps and driveways to your car, and now the visibility issues that are happening. And it's all atmospheric. It's because the temperature now is right at freezing, and then you have ice, and then you have warmer temperatures, and it creates that that fog that happens because of precipitation. We are visiting with Chuck Malamut, the official, the exclusive financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program. I thought our former casino executives, senior executives question was a very good one.
It was, and
a very important one to solve. We can kick the can and keep pretending this is great. Everything's fine. Don't worry. Nothing wrong here. Go move on. Get lost. Go ahead. But it's a really good question. And at some point, whether it's Governor Phil Murphy or whoever decides. Now, in fairness, Governor Christie did fund the pension system to the tune of more than the last 5 governors combined. He did his part.
He did his part, Harry. I agree with you there, but I think, unfortunately, there's a whole lot more work to be done at this point in time.
Without a doubt. There's no question about it.
But, getting back to, we only spent just a second and talked about manufacturing and how important I think manufacturing is, to our economy, not only domestically but globally as well. If you look at the Institute for Supply Management, in December, the number that they reported increased to 59.7, which is a 3-month high. So when you look at the entire year 2017, the index was at its highest level that we've seen, Harry, in 13 years. So, earlier last week, we saw a number of strong manufacturing results from around the world. So again, as I started discussions this morning,
is America leading this rally around the world?
No, not necessarily so. I mean, I think that we have made statements to our clients, the fact how important it is to own non-U.S. investments, in as much that you've seen tremendous amount of positive work being done internationally. And as a result, as you know, last week all unto itself, I think I mentioned to you before, the MSCI Emerging Markets, was the best performer. And again, 1 week does not make a market. But last year, the MSCI Emerging Markets, which everyone had basically wrote off, was one of the leading markets. Hong Kong, the Japanese market, the Germany market. I mean, they all are basically in line, if not better, than the U.S. right now. So, again, it's a matter of, as we said to your listeners, on I don't even know how many occasions, probably more than we should have, the fact that, hopefully you got the year end, you had an opportunity, you maybe were able to do some tax harvesting, but now it's certainly a good time as you sort of turn a page and you're now in 2018, and you have sort of a clean slate that you might want to do some rebalancing and makes, only because we really don't think much about what happens outside the U.S. There's a lot of the companies that are out there we don't even follow because, they're not name familiar. I mean, companies, and again, we're not going to talk about a company, but companies like a Nestle's, for instance. I mean, that's obviously a conglomerate, based overseas. But I think we need to take a look at all of our portfolios to clearly understand that international is going to be a really good place to be over the next couple of years.
I know I've talked to you in the past more than a quarter of a century that we've been together, Chuck, on this program. You've been doing it longer than that, and very, very well, I might add. But gold, I just read last week, had a record rally that ended. They're saying it ended, but a record rally that was going on. What are your thoughts about gold or precious metals in general as either a hedge or small portion of the portfolio? What's your philosophy?
I guess, Harry, maybe we never figured it out because gold, and the miners, for instance, maybe a very small piece of a portfolio, 3%, 5%. But unfortunately, for a lot of years, it did not work, and now it's finally starting to work. And as you're seeing a lot of movement, it seems as if into these cryptocurrencies.
Because now they're talking about what's the next cryptocurrency.
Yeah. So, and there are hundreds of those out there, but we'll save that. We'll save that discussion for another day because it's just.
How complicated are these cryptocurrencies? I know we only have 2 minutes in your show, Chuck, but they seem to me, because they're not regulated, they're not completely unregulated, but they're not really regulated, and now there's talk of, as you're saying, many, many more of them. I would find that is like a complicated, thing for the markets to try to absorb. How do you even I would have to believe our mainstream markets don't even look at them as legitimate.
I think blockchain is legitimate. I mean, that's certainly, and if you remember, a number of very, very well respected and well known people, Jamie Dimon, Warren Buffett, basically came out and said, "Look, they
didn't ignore it.
This is a fraud." Now, with Jamie Dimon, actually, I think I saw it this morning. He actually he's backtracking, a little bit on his statements. Blockchain is for real, but the concern that I think all of us had, and you kind of said it there a minute ago, is the fact that what are governments thinking about the fact they can't regulate, these cryptocurrencies, especially when they start to grow. And, it's like anything else, Harry, in any business, you got to be concerned about the fraudsters. I mean, you get, how many emails a day do you get and how many end up in your spam folder? Yeah. And what's in your spam folder, 3/4 of them are about Bitcoin, as it turns out, because there's an old expression: trees don't grow to the sky.
This is crazy. I think because maybe there's a slight little delay in the app versus live, barely, but a little delay. I'm getting questions about cryptocurrency. Then our listener wrote, spoke too soon because we're already talking about it. Here's something I didn't know. Amazon and eBay are getting ready to accept cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I think what is happening, and I want to say
that's a game changer.
I want to say, and please, I could be very wrong. It's just saying Microsoft, I think, basically said they're going to suspend taking payments only for now, and the concern, in as much that it's for real, but the problem is that asset class, if it is in fact an asset class, because the whole discussion isn't an asset class, and what is it? The fact of the matter is you have so much volatility. Now, a lot of people come in and say it's like anything else. So you remember years ago, they'll stay home, they'll day trade. Lots of people, a lot of people have made a lot of money. But on the other side of the coin, for a winner, there's always going to be a loser. And
one Bitcoin right now is like
15,000.
Yeah, I was going to say in the teens.
But you have
very volatile.
But it is, and it could look this currency, or not so much. All of them can move 5, 8, 10% in an hour. So that is not an investment. And once they take,
it's a risky proposition.
Once
right?
they take the volatility out, and it will come out at some point in time, I think there is a need for this. But imagine you go to a retailer and they accept Bitcoin, and you make your deal and you transact whatever the business is, and either on the buy side or the sell side, somebody could get hurt because the volatility and the movement of that particular cryptocurrency.
You would be agreeing to take payment at the value at the moment of the transaction.
Yeah, the other thing,
and then of course that could go up at that point or go down at that point.
The other concern that I think a lot of us have is like, what is the true backing, if there is, and which we haven't been able to figure that out. And ultimately, at the end of the day, they in our world they have an IPO, initial public offering, and to do that, to get to that IPO stage, there are a number of checks and balances and a number of regulatory hurdles you have to go through, and then the investment banking firm goes on the road and does a roadshow, and they raise the capital, and they say, okay, we think we can offer so many millions of shares at $20 a share, and the market capitalization of this company is $1 billion. We'll call it that. And they price it. Now, if they price it and they get it right, and when the IPO breaks, it opens at 20, it stays around 20. If they price it wrong, either way, it IPOs at 20, the initial, and the first trade is done at 30, then that $10 was left on the table that the company could have had. Mm-hmm. So the banker didn't really do a great job. Conversely, it comes at 20 and the first trade's at 18, then the banker did, their job because they got all the value. The problem that we have with these cryptocurrencies now is that there's so many new ones coming to market, and they have a white paper. They don't go through the same regulatory process an IPO goes. So at the end of the day, what in fact are you really buying? And unfortunately, it's sort of the wild, wild west. Think about where the internet was in its infancy. Think about all those companies that did not make it, but think about on the back end the ones that survived and now prosper.
When we look at when we think about full faith and credit, we think about like a Federal Reserve note is backed. And the United States of America has never defaulted. So it's huge when you say that is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. A Bitcoin is backed by the full faith of the universe. How many is it? There's
21 million that will be available after they're all mined. I mean, look, it's a very. I'll tell you, I'm very intrigued by the whole process.
I am too.
There's no doubt about it. What we're seeing here is that in our world and in the gaming world, for instance, getting the millennials out of the clubs into the casino is an event. Okay, get them to game. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to figure out, interactive gaming. So the millennials will spend more in the casino and less in the club. Now, what has happened, the millennials, unfortunately, really haven't taken hold to what we do on a day-to-day basis. So sort of the crossover that we're thinking about is happening now because it's all done on the phone.
There's
the virtual wallets, and so now what is happening? The TD Ameritrades of the world, for instance, are saying that we think the advent of this cryptocurrency will attract that generation into the financial markets. and hopefully that is in fact the case. But
I'm gonna disagree with that. I think the people that are involved with it don't necessarily want to be in the traditional financial markets. They like this.
Yeah, but that's fine. But you know what's going to happen at some point in time. It's like it's like anything else. You don't want to concentrate, your portfolio in one asset class.
Well, I know what's going to happen. It's like I always use the Rocky Balboa analogy that Mick, when he's talking to Rocky, and he says, "Rock, the worst thing that can happen to a fighter happened. You got civilized." What's going to ultimately happen, and it's going to gravitate towards that. It's going to become mainstream, which is everything that most of the Bitcoiners don't want it to become, but it will go that way.
Look, this will be a very, very interesting as we go from start to finish to see what happens. And it's like anything else, I think what any investor or any listener needs to be concerned about, if it's too good to be true, it's not. And, there's an old, you make money.
Tell that to the Winklevoss twins.
Well, you make money, if it was so easy, everybody would do it. And you would sit home and do nothing but use your phone. But it's like anything else. You have to be very, very careful.
I have to say, though, and I know you're on overtime, but I have to say, I don't know whether to call it ingenious or madness, but somebody came up with the concept that they kind of wanted to go non-traditional, almost like people now, it's very popular to some, going off the grid, and you build your home and you create your solar and you have your water and you bring it to the home and you have your homestead and you're living off the grid. This was like people that said, screw the man, we're going to create our own currency.
Yeah,
that's what they did.
I don't make a lot of recommendations on what your listeners should be watching or reading or listening to, but I will tell you there is a 1 hour documentary, actually a little bit more, maybe an hour and a half documentary on Netflix about the advent of Bitcoin. And I think it's very, very well done. And because there's so much confusion out there, you should really try to take the time to watch it, because I think it'll be a more educated consumer once you finish.
Chuck will back me up on this, and I can back him up on this. I just very early on was intellectually curious about this Bitcoin, and I would raise it on Chuck's show from time to time when nobody was even writing about it, nobody was talking about it. And I said, Chuck, what is this cryptocurrency? What is this Bitcoin? Because it was hard for me to it almost reminded me of some of those .com things. There was no there, but they created nothing. They created something out of nothing.
Here's what's very interesting. As I mentioned to you, I was out west for a couple of days last week. We had some 401k meetings in Las Vegas and visiting with some friends who have children in their early 30s, and it's great that they have passion, and that generation, they have so much passion for this. You don't want to take it away from them, because they've actually grasped and have gotten hold of it. And I use my son as a perfect example. Someone that's just sort of all in, that clearly understands a lot more about cryptocurrencies than you and I will ever try to figure out. Versus the traditional old school. And so you have, on one side, you have the lovers, and you don't have a lot in the middle. And then on the other side, you have those that either don't care for it, don't like it, don't understand it, or a combination.
And while this is not 100% true, because there are some people that saw potential and they invested, and they're to date, unless it all falls apart, they've made a lot of money, like the Winklevoss twins. I don't think the Winklevoss twins are millennials. They're older than that, but they are younger. It seems to me cryptocurrency, we almost have a demarcation line. I can't pick an age, but I'll say maybe 30-something. If you're 30-something or below, and say young adult to 30-something,
you're all in.
You're all in. Mm-hmm. If you're above that, you're very skeptical.
And as the farther away you become from I'll kind of make that. I'll draw that line at 35.
That's about what I'm saying. Yeah.
Somebody that's a little bit older, and I'm
seasoned citizen.
I'm looking at you, Harry.
I got what you're doing. I'm not a seasoned citizen yet.
I'm looking at you, and I was trying to be very, very nice because I know you took a step for the team this morning, and you're hurting as a result.
Playing injured.
So I won't go there.
Thank you.
I think. I think the old.
Chuck's calling me old.
The oldsters, are less inclined to be a believer. Only because. Think about
under your theory of it's too good to be true. Well, they don't see any there. I didn't see any there. I kept saying, Chuck, what is this cryptocurrency? What is this? What's propping it up? We talk about the full faith and credit of the United States. Well, we're not backed by gold or silver anymore. So really, it's backed by our faith.
Perfect case in point, and I remember this discussion I had with my son not too long ago. He goes, "Well, Dad, if you wanted to go to the local bank and take a large withdrawal." You just can't walk in and say, I need $25,000. When you need to give the bank advance notice so they have the cash there.
Yeah.
And as I explained to him, I said that's because of security and the way the banks operate today. And then so you get into a whole discussion. Well, is it there? Is it really there? How much is really there? And
now that's a good point.
So
you can watch the movie It's a Wonderful Life. How much do you really need? I need it all. I need it all. Bailey, I need it all. Tell me what you can get by with. And they were waiting for the clock, to get to 5 so they could lock the door and still the bank was solvent, barely at like $3 and he put them in the bin. That's a very good point because that's hard to argue. We all know that if everybody ran at the same time, it would be a terrible calamity.
And as I said to you before, I think there is truly a spot for cryptos. The initial coin offerings, or ICOs as they're referred to, I think that you have to be very, very careful to clearly understand what you're buying and why you're buying it. And I think there's
anybody risk adverse, you just can't go there.
And I think there's just a lot of people because they heard their friends made money, and it's so easy. The millennials they really haven't gotten hurt yet. They haven't gotten burned.
But early on, we could say this, but you don't have a window into the future. If we all scraped $10,000 together early on and bought Bitcoin,
you'd be a millionaire.
Yeah.
But I think that for every good investment, there's so many bad investments. So I guess the point I'm trying to make, and I'm belaboring the point, I apologize.
No, you're doing good.
I think that because we have history on our side and we've lived through a number of events, whether it was in our current livelihood or our prior livelihood, that generation is not. And I think they need to get beat up a little bit to clearly understand what the world's sort of all about.
But that's like their new norm, though. They look at that. We look at it as like very risky and very odd. They look at it as the opposite, and that what we do is very odd.
Only time will tell.
Yes,
and I wish, and I see you're wearing a nice green shirt today, which is nice, and I hope for sure the home team has a good showing and moves on to the next round.
Thank you, Chuck. See you soon.
Thanks, Harry.
We'll be back in 2 minutes. Wide Open Forum continues, so you stay on the phone lines. We'll get to you next.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff is brought to you by Integrity Physical Therapy and Wellness and Dr. Stuart Honig of Go Feet Podiatry.
What's better than a nice warm cup of apple cider on a cold winter day? Real cider is unpasteurized, unfiltered juice from apple mash. It contains the juice with sediment and pulp from the fruit. This differs from apple juice that you buy in the store, which is filtered to remove sediment and pasteurized to improve shelf life. Apple cider is rich with antioxidants that can help decrease our risk of a variety of conditions such as artery disease and cancer. Drinking apple cider can help increase our daily fiber intake to improve digestion and lower blood cholesterol. Fiber also helps us feel full so we don't overeat. Apples are a healthy, nutritious food, and cider is a great way to enjoy them. So go ahead, warm up that cup of apple cider and drink up. I'm Robin Stoloff for Health Update.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff is brought to you by Integrity Physical Therapy. Put yourself in their hands. And Go Feet Podiatry. Your feet will thank you.
We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Fourth quarter is Wide Open Forum, and this will be a very significant news day. I will prove that later today. Stay tuned. It's early in the morning. This is WPG Talk Radio 104.1 FM, 1450 AM, and, of course, everywhere, anywhere, on the app and at WPGTalkRadio.com. But get the app, because then you will have the website, you will have the radio station, the ability to point and click one push to dial the program, any of the programs on WPG. And to this caller, you're going to be our first caller right after the break. Please hang in there for just a couple of minutes. Fourth quarter, Hurley in the Morning on WPG begins right now.
104.1 FM and 1450 AM WPGG Atlantic City. Everything you need to know in 6 minutes starts now.
North Korea wants peace? I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. That's what's coming out of the first face-to-face discussions between the Koreas in 2 years, putting out a joint statement wanting to ease tensions, hold military talks, and promote reconciliation and unity. Also coming out of this, North Korea will participate in the Olympics next month in South Korea.
On its surface, at least, Washington has given its blessings to these talks, but the fear